Welcome back to SnowRunner, guys, and this is the Custom 20. Now, the Custom 20 is on all consoles right now, as well as, of course, PC, and I'll be the first to admit that I may have overlooked this truck a little bit in the beginning. However, once I started diving into it, I realized there was a lot more to this thing than it might have seemed on the surface. Now, it sounds awesome, it's got some really interesting upgrades, and honestly, I've got to say, for somebody's first mod, this thing is pretty sick. Now, it also does a few things in terms of customization that not a lot of other people are really doing at all. So it takes an interesting, creative approach at the idea of a classic Squarebody. Now, obviously, when I fire it up, you'll be able to tell very quickly that it is not the engine that it came with. Let me fire it up for you guys. Yeah, it's definitely not the stock V8 that this thing came with. Nope, this thing is 12-valve swapped. Now, you have a few different levels that you can tune the 12-valve to, and obviously that's going to change your power output, your torque, your top speed, all that good stuff, and you also have some really good transmission options to go with it. Now, I'm hoping that we see more wheel and tire options for this thing in the future down the line, but even the ones we have right now are pretty cool. So let's dive into the customization first. Now, engine-wise, we have the stock 12-valve, which is a C+ power-to-weight rating, so pretty, low end on the power, not gonna lie. Then we have the compound turbo 12-valve, which brings us up to a B+. Then we have the tuned 12-valve, which says it's a B-. That doesn't make any sense. There's something wrong with that. Or maybe just the compound turbo is the top one. Maybe there's not something wrong with that. Maybe that's what he intended. Well, I guess that might be what he intended then. So gearbox-wise, we have your standard gearbox, then we have a 7-speed, which is obviously more highway intended, and then we have a 6-speed, which is more realism/off-road intended. So we're going to go with the 6-speed for now. And then suspension-wise, we have a 6-inch lift, a towing-focused lift, we have a standard-to-height towing suspension, and the stock suspension, which is aptly named suspension. Now, we're going to go with the 6-inch lift on this one, and tires-wise, the weird thing is, if you go with that 6-inch lift, it lowers the truck back down unless you use the custom tires that it comes with, which you can go all the way up to a 36 in. And let me go down to the off-road compound tires that it comes with, or I should say the mud compound tires that it comes with, and you can go all the way up to a 36 in these as well. But I've got to say, this is a tire compound that I've never really seen anywhere before, and if you know what this was inspired by or what this was based on, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm genuinely very, very curious. When I look at that, I'm like, I do not recognize that. Even if it's inspired by any other tire compound, I don't recognize it one bit. So we're going to go ahead and throw those on. And then winch-wise, we've got a heavy-duty autonomous, which is definitely going in this thing. Now, the interesting thing about the diff locks is that you can do a engageable, which basically will restrict you to only using the diff lock when you're in any of the low ranges. However, when you go with the diff lock, that makes it always on. So if you want to be able to use the diff lock when you're in automatic, definitely go for that option. Now, frame add-ons wise, we have the toolbox. We also have the dually flares, which you can use if you wanted to use, say, for example, one of the sets of dually tires that you have included in the original game. So there are no modded dually tires on this thing yet. There's only default game dually tires. But again, if you're wanting to build a sort of a campaign-friendly truck, those vanilla tire options will be good for that. So let's go with the toolbox in the bed. Now, visuals-wise, we have running boards, which are actually classic-style running boards, which really you've kind of got to have the dually fenders to make them interface properly, because as you can see right there towards the rear fender, they kind of curve out to where they would meet the dually fender. But let's see. Let's go and throw the snorkel on it. And roof-wise, definitely want those cab lights. And frame add-ons-wise, you can put a gooseneck hitch in it because I believe Red's gooseneck trailers do apply to this vehicle. And bed-wise, we got the stock bed and the flat bed, which the gooseneck hitch works with both of those options. Now, if you like the flatbed, it's actually really good because you can carry around 500 repair points, 4 spare wheels, and 53 units of fuel in it, which is pretty dang good, especially considering the fact that you can layer the toolbox on top of the flatbed itself. So for now, we're going to run the stock bed, but the flatbed is a really cool option. Now, we're going to go from the stock rear bumper over to the aftermarket rear bumper, which is just a little bit more squared off. and a little bit more tucked up onto the back of the truck. We do have a weighted CUCV bumper as well if you plan on doing a little bit of heavier towing with this thing. And the front bumper, in comparison to the stock bumper, is obviously a little bit more tucked up around the edges and a little bit more off-road focused, a little bit more approach angle focused. So we're going to go with that. Now, exhaust-wise, this is where it gets interesting. Now, the standard exhaust kind of looks like your standard, like, 3-inch straight pipe, 3.5-inch straight pipe. It's interesting because the actual exhaust tip looks a little bit closer to like maybe like a 5 or 6, but the actual pipe looks more like a 3 to a 4. And then the Fender Exit literally would come just straight off the turbo, and then the dual side pipes basically split off and go out either side. Now, we're gonna go with the Fender Exit setup on this thing. And wheels-wise, you have the stock wheels and also some off-road style bead locks. Definitely going to go with those. And then colors-wise, you have the default orange. And then you can go over to more of like a, kind of like an olive green, but it's a little bit brighter than your standard OD green. And then you have a gray, like kind of a whitish silver. You have it's almost like a plum red. I'm not quite sure what you would call that. Then you have your standard red, like your deep red, a nice deeper blue, a brown, and kind of like it's almost like a mint color. But I think for this build, I kind of want to go with the red, but I also want to go with the green. I think we'll start with the green and go from there. No interior customization on this thing as of right now. And now we're going to go ahead and back out of the garage and see what it's like to drive in this spec. And I got to tell you, that Fender Exit exhaust just makes it for me. So let's go ahead and start it up. There's a lot of smoke with this thing. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys right now, like, if you go with that Fender Exit exhaust, there's a ton of smoke. Now, the last time I drove this thing was on a live stream with my buddy Diesel Addict, and when we were making our way around some of the maps, we noticed that, like, if we were running that Fender Exit exhaust, sometimes, like, when you're racing side by side, you can actually smoke out the driver next to you. It's hilarious. So, yep, as you can see, we've got Red's gooseneck trailers available to us as options. So, if you have always wanted to use maybe a classic style square body with a 12-valve swap as a tow rig, this could be your rig right here. And also, it's not actually all that intense to run in terms of memory and RAM, I don't think. So let's give it a flex test real quick now that we're on the 6-inch lift. Now, it should be fairly good considering the fact that this thing is solid axle front and rear, but I'm not quite sure how soft the springs are. So let's drive it up the flex ramp and see. It's actually pretty realistic because it's not a massive amount of flex, but it is a realistic amount of flex. Now let's take it into some obstacles and see how it does around the map. Now, for those of you that are curious, the map that I'm on right now is the Summer Testing Grounds, and I'm going to go ahead and skip a little bit ahead in terms of time and weather, just so we don't have to deal with the gloomy weather, the gloomy, overcast haze, the gloomy rain. Kind of would rather a nice day out here, Now, with the top spec engine and transmission, well, actually, it's not in this top spec transmission right now, but with the top spec engine, it's not, I wouldn't say it's overly fast. It's definitely not overly fast. It's definitely in line with what I would think a vanilla rig would be, and you can definitely tell that's how this was tuned. It doesn't feel like it's any faster than the small top truck. Now, I haven't compared them side by side, but I will say that it doesn't feel like it's any faster than that truck. The nice thing is, you can climb hills and high because you've got absolute gobs of torque. You have, like, gigantic amounts of torque at your disposal whenever you would like with this compound turbo 12-valve setup. Let's see how you do over the rocks. I'm not sure if we're about to get stuck or if we're about to monster these rocks. Low plus is actually pretty slow, which is actually kind of nice because that means that low and low minus are incredibly, like, crawler geared in this particular transmission option. Not doing too bad on the rock grip so far. Camber did some weird stuff back there, but that's all right. Easy. Honestly, I gotta say, the rock grip is pretty dang good. Pretty dang impressive. That approach angle wasn't too happy with us, but let's go ahead and repair and refuel just so we can clean up that body damage a little bit. Because I don't know about you guys, but, like, I like to be looking at kind of like a cleaner truck. Although I will say, if you're going down, like, a really tough trail, the damage does give it, like, a little bit more character. And in that situation, I'll usually leave the visual damage because at the end of the trail, it's kind of fun to see how banged up the rig is after the end of the trail, or at least, like, the mark that the trail left on the rig. But let's throw it into high and see how it does in the mud. Now, the shallow mud seems to be doing just fine. Let's see how it does in one of these mud lanes. All right, plunging it in and go. It's pretty impressive. Mud lane number 1, it ripped that. Dude, it absolutely ripped that. All right, mud lane number 2. This is where it'll probably... Nope, never mind. I just haven't lifted yet. Oh, it started bogging out. So, actually, that's interesting. So, some trucks will start spinning and digging. Other trucks will start bogging out and eventually stall. This will bog out and eventually stall before it starts spinning and digging. So that's actually kind of a good way to gauge whether or not it's going to like the level of mud that you tried to put it through. So now let's make our way over to the dips obstacle before making our way to the bridge jump, which I missed the bridge jump. We haven't hit the bridge jump in a while, and I feel kind of bad about that because I'm always a fan of the bridge jump. Now, I'm sure it's going to be fine through the dips obstacle. Let's see how slow it is in low minus. Bro, this is actual crawler gear. This is flat out. Like, it's actually, you can tell that the gearbox is, like, holding it back because the wheels will actually, sometimes they'll hang up a little bit. But, like, if you genuinely want the lowest possible low range, I mean, you have that available to you right here. Yeah, low plus in this feels like standard low in most other trucks, and that is definitely not an understatement. Let's go back into automatic through here. Not bad. Nice and easy, nice and easy, nice and easy. Here we go, here we go. Yo, that went really well. This is actually going incredibly well. Let's see what happens if we just go at it straight on like you're not supposed to. Honestly, pretty good. I mean, the front end completely just, like, buries itself in the dirt, but, like, I mean, it's not causing it any damage, so it's not really all that big of a deal. Now, let's make our way back out onto the road now and get this guy set up with the 7-speed transmission. Let's see, highway trans, and continue, and switch back to, like, a nice sunny afternoon. And now, I think just because we're hitting it off the bridge jump, I want to paint it red. I don't know why, it just feels appropriate. There it is. All right. Give it a rev. 3, 2, 1, and drop it. Come on. Or not. That was a bit anticlimactic, wasn't it? Yo, high range in the 7-speed is fast. The steering ratio can't keep up, though. The steering is quite slow. You have to, like, plan your turn, like, God, what feels like a quarter mile in advance sometimes. But then again, this kind of truck was never designed to go all that fast, so I kind of understand where they're coming from with that slow steering ratio. Oh, God. Wow, it handles super flat, though. That's not what I expected to see. All right, in the boost. Come on. Oh, what? You went all the way back to freaking first gear? Okay, buddy. All right. Let's go. Fully into the power. Where's 7th gear? There it is. Oh! Took out all the barrels, but really only ended up with, like, what, half suspension damage? That's not bad at all for what we just went through. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed this truck, make sure to let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all next time. Talk to y'all later.